So episode 3 is over. Can you believe we are 3 weeks in? My hair is getting greyer by the week. I cannot wait till hair dye arrives, lads. I don't ever think I thought I'd miss it as much as I do. Okay, so this week we were in Galway. We went out to Connemara, we went up to Mayo. Lisa and James were the two guinea pigs, I suppose, that came along for the ride with me and Kieran. So yeah, I just want to chat through why I picked the houses I did for them, which one was my favourite. So let's get started. Okay, so the first house I want to talk about was the Thatched Cottage. How awesome is the Thatched Cottage? Wasn't it the most lovely thing? I think, apart from the area and the fact that obviously it was a thatched cottage, which is fantastic, my favourite thing about that house was how good a condition it was in the inside. I mean, I know there was like these little signs of damp and stuff like that, but that's one of those things with a thatched roof, especially if it's not maintained very well, it's going to have a knock-on effect on what comes into the walls of the house. But I mean, other than that, the inside of the house was quite nice. I mean, there was 2 bedrooms downstairs, then there was the main living room, there was the kitchen, there was also a bathroom downstairs, and then upstairs you had 2 bedrooms, so basically the whole length of the house was split into 2 really, really nice big rooms. You know, it was quite modern. I mean, someone had obviously been using that, whether it was for a holiday home or for a full long-term living space, up until quite recently. You know, it had carpets laid, the kitchen was quite modern in it and stuff like that, and it was lovely. I mean, fairly modern wiring, just these kind of things that if you need to get into a house, it makes it a lot easier. So the thatched roof, of course, is one of those things that you need to speak to a specialist about with a house like this. It's something I think I might do a video on in the future. Maybe we can pick somebody's brain if you know anyone out there who'd be willing to talk to us about it. I think it's one of those things that I'd love to save on houses. I know loads of people love to look at them. Loads of people love the idea of them being kept. But how realistic is it? How much does it cost? How much would it cost Lisa and James to keep it on the house? Would it affect insurance? Like, there's loads of questions there that need to be answered by someone way more specialised, of course, than myself and Kieran. But other than that, I think that house, with the view they had, and I mean, even the right way down to the beach, oh, wouldn't it be just the most amazing place to live? Okay, so I'm a sucker for a 2-storey farmhouse. You know that with me. I mean, Loughisle is my dream house. And that house in Shrule was a big house. I mean, it was in good condition too. One of the things I loved about it was the fact that they could have moved straight in. And I am never, ever going to put somebody into a derelict house if I can get them into a house that they can move into straight away. It's just a no-brainer. Look, get people into houses. If there's a house that they can move into soon, all the better. And that's the thing about that house. It was a little bit outside of their comfort zone when it came to their commuting distances. It wasn't really on the hospital side of Galway. It was more up to the north, the Headford side. But it was one of those houses that it was substantial. It had a nice big garden. It was perfect inside. Like, the only things that needed to be added to that house were cosmetic, personal preferences of things. And I mean, I'll never count that against a house. That doesn't even warrant talking about for me, because it's just such a frill. The house was lovely, it was big, and yeah, I mean, I loved it. It was sensible as well. I think definitely a sensible buy. Not necessarily in their favourite area, but I mean, I was driving up there when I was in Galway and it was just absolutely lovely. And it was a horrible day when I was up there and it was still lovely. So, I mean, that house is going to make a super big home for somebody, and a really, really affordable one at that. Okay, so anybody that knows me knows I'm not really a bungalow person. I kind of don't really see the fascination with them at all. I don't know what it is, but I'm never going to inflict that on people when I'm looking for houses for them, because it's such a personal preference for me. This bungalow too, I don't know what it was about it. It was the most beautiful thing. I mean, it definitely swayed me on what bungalows can be. I never thought I would see that kind of character in a bungalow. I never thought that the proportions of the rooms, I mean, those really high ceilings, the lovely windows. I mean, it was almost like as if you were in like a little gate lodge or something from an old estate house. It was a house that was designed and intentionally built to look the way it did, as opposed to just being kind of taken out of a book of bungalow plans. It really was a beautiful, beautiful place. I mean, the way the lady had it too when it was done up, I mean, that was kind of my taste too. The fact that it had like the big fireplace in the kitchen and the big clothes dryer up on the ceiling, and it had like a little potbelly stove, but yet it had a big kind of nice china sink. It wasn't just a metal one set into the worktop. I mean, some really, really great touches in that place that I think if you wanted the character of an old house, but you didn't necessarily want to start pulling floors up and pulling walls down, it's one of those places that you could kind of almost pretend you were in an old house without actually having the hardship of living in an old house. So I mean, yeah, I loved that. Definitely it swayed me on my kind of preconceptions when it comes to bungalows a little bit. I think I'm going to be a bit more open-minded in the future for sure. Okay, so last but absolutely not least was that little cottage with the blue fireplace that was out near the sea in Connemara. I don't know, I love that house so much. Now that house had come up on my feed a couple of months ago and I had featured it, and it had 2 inside pictures and that was it. And even with just 2 pictures, that house was one of those places that I just absolutely fell in love with. When I got inside it and I saw all the little painted furniture and I saw all the Carrigaline pottery in the second bedroom, and there was like this lovely Pope picture in the built-in unit beside the fireplace. This was one of those houses that I think when you dream of living in a cottage in Ireland, this is what you dream of. And I don't even think it's like for people outside of Ireland that dream like that. This is me. Like, I want a whitewashed house. I want painted fireplaces and painted furniture and bright colours. And I think when I walked into that place, it was just like this little time capsule. And I just think it's one of those places that just really, really needs to be saved. It needs to be bought by somebody that is willing to keep it very like it is and not just turn it into some sort of a bungalow or some sort of a modern thing where it's like, oh, I stuck a glass box on the side so you could tell the difference between the old and the new. Like, we don't need to tell the difference between the old and the new. If you can fit it in and make it look like this quaint little cottage that it is and keep it sympathetic to your neighbours and the people living around you, I think that would be a way better way to treat this cottage. This place had land too. I mean, this had land that went down to the sea. So you weren't only buying this pokey little garden, you had quite a lot of space. And out in Connemara, if you're not really too familiar with it, you know, it's kind of made up of these very, very small little fields, like little subdivisions. And like when you get 2 acres or an acre in Connemara, you could have 5 or 6 of these little fields. Like, it's quite a substantial amount of space. You know, everyone doesn't get this amount of land with their cottages, especially in the west. So it was a really, really nice big amount of land to have with that. I think it wasn't that small of a place either. I mean, so you had like 2 rooms going off the main living area in the centre, and then you had a little extension out the back and you had a little rooms in that too. So I mean, that was a nice little house. You know, it was solid on the outside. It had been rendered relatively recently, so it had kind of kept a lot of the water out of the building. It hadn't got a very old roof on it either. So I mean, when I look at that, I think relatively new roof, fairly good walls on the outside. Even if you're going to take the walls back and do something a lot more sympathetic with them in the future, at least it has kept the water out for the last 20, 50, 100 years, you know. So it gives you a good place to start. I mean, it's always better to be starting with a house that isn't completely crumbling and falling down, and then you can maybe, you know, treat it with materials and methods that are just a little bit more sympathetic than what was put on it maybe in the last 20 or 30 years. Definitely this house was hands down my favourite for this show. I have a couple of small photos that I took when I was in there. I'm going to throw them up on my Instagram stories later, so go over and have a little look at them. And yeah, you'll get to see a little bit of what I saw when I was in there. Definitely one of the cutest houses I have ever been in my whole life. So there we have it, episode 3, little after show finished, and yeah, it's just a matter of waiting now for episode 4 next Tuesday night. Oh, I'm so excited already. Thank you all so much for watching. Thanks for watching the show on RTE. Thanks for coming over here and watching this. And if you have any questions, it doesn't matter what they are, get in touch with me on Instagram, leave a comment below, whatever you want to do, and I'll answer you if I can. Thank you. Bye.